Hey everybody, we're back. Welcome to the channel. We are working on a CB750 project. If you watched the last episode, we did steering stem, made that to fit into the 1098 front triple and front end that I have on here. So I'll show you what I got. It's all mounted up, and lucky me, the actual forks and the rims that I chose to use, I wanted the 5-spoke rim. Well, with that particular rim, I have to go with a 15mm offset, and the only ones that make 15mm offset rotors are Brembo, and those are the Racing Series 320mm diameter 15mm offset with the 6-lug mounting plate on there. So those are the only options I have, and the best price I've seen so far for a brand new set is almost $600 for a set of rotors. So yay, lucky me. Went from a moderately expense in the actual conversion of this bike to a little bit more expense. I wasn't planning on that, but it is what it is. I got a nice Ducati front end on this bike. So I had made up some spacers. These are 10mm offset rotors that I happen to have. They were 6-lug, and I made some 5mm spacers just to verify that my offset was correct. It is, and like I said, the only option I have is for the higher end Brembo racing rotors to go on here. So anyways, we're gonna put a hold on this because it's pretty much done. I've already made all the spacers and actually spaced off for the rim, so everything is good and ready to go here. The rotors are mounted with my homemade spacers, and the brake calipers are mounted in position. Make sure everything lined up. We're all good here. I still have my stop to make, but I'm not going to worry about that because I want to get this rear end off and start fitting this 848 rear end on here. So I got to get it kind of blocked up to the height that I want and get my measurements that I want, so I'll know where to set this, and then start disassembling and cutting this all off to get the actual swing arm mounted. Alright everybody, got the rear subframe chopped off. It's not finalized, I just got it trimmed so it's out of the way. I have trimmed and got the swing arm temporarily fit. The axle that goes through smaller than what the Ducati axle would have been, but at least it fits through there, so I'll have to machine some new spacers that go through the bearings, and so it'll fit through there. I also had to trim the frame, and so what I plan to do is clean it up a lot more, internally weld all the pipes that join into these brackets that's on here, internally weld, and then come in and feather with an angle in it because there is a sweep angle to it, and it was rubbing the frame. So I just need to clean that all up, and then finalize it a lot more. But at this point, it's temporarily fit. It does articulate. So at this point, that's where we're at. When I come back, I should have this a lot cleaned up a lot more, and decide what I'm going to do as far as I need to finish cutting this off, and what I'm going to do for rounding or blending in the rear action of the frame. And as you can see, this is where the height adjuster is at for the 1098 or the 848. So basically my shock will come in like so. It's just a hammer for a temporary fit, but as you can kind of get the idea, lines up perfectly, so yay. But just got to get the correct inner diameter of the wheel bearings, or the hinge point bearings on here. So that's the update for this. Hey everybody, we're back. The swing arm has been mounted. It's just temporarily. I was able to use the original swing arm axle bolt, as well as the original positions, because on the 848 the distance between the pivot point and the center of the hub is almost identical to where the chain was positioned on the original swing arm. So as far as wheelbase length, very minimal change there. I'll have to cut the axle down, and what I'll do is I will bore, once I cut it off, I'll bore a hole, tap it, and be able to make a fender washer and heavy bolt on both sides for the axle. The downfall is with this, it is center line, and you can see I got the shock on here, a temporary fit. I will have to have about 10mm offset front sprocket in order to be aligned in there, which is no big deal. I can make one up myself. You just got to sacrifice 2 sprockets in order to make one. So so at this point I've already made a spacer to go inside this side. This here has a steel insert inside of it, so when you pull the thread in, you got at least got some steel that's cast inside of the actual swing arm. But the hole was much larger. It was made for a really big shoulder bolt, I'm assuming. I made an aluminum spracer that press fit into this actual other ear right here, and then ran my bolt through so it's all lined up. And from my gathering, the mounting point for here is strictly going to be right between the frame, and it'll line up perfect. You can see it's really nice and center line of the frame. So now that is done, I just got to finish trimming up this stuff, cleaning it up, the frame, so I can get on to building the mount to lock the spring in. I'll have to come through and finish trimming up this area. I'll probably take and get some pipe and scab off a piece so I can actually form in here to give it that rounded look, to fill in where I cut off the original subframe section of it and build it up nicely. Other than that, it's got to be detabbed, all that fancy stuff that you would normally do. Back to the sprocket, I'll most likely go with a 520 pitch. So when I make up my front sprocket, it'll be 520, because most of the Ducati stuff, modern Ducati stuff, is all 520 pitch anyways. So I'm going to use a 520 chain, which would be nice because it'll be lighter on the bike. So anyway, it looks, when this plate is on here, if you're familiar with a CB, that plate is almost lined up with at least the guide track. So when I get my sprockets, I will accurately measure it make sure I got the correct offset for the sprocket. But that plate puts it about where it needs to, where the center line needs to be. So all is good. All right, everybody, we got the shock in place. I got it just tightened. It's not tacked or anything, but this is the mount so far coming in. I took my straight edge and it is parallel, measuring it from here to here with the straight edge. So I get nice parallel form through here. So I'll get this all tacked up, and then I'll come in and web, put some gussets back in here for added strength. This was 1.25 inch square tubing at a cut end angle, so it had the gussets in there. It's got good wall thickness. So we're gonna get this all tacked up and we'll come back. All right, we have it all welded up. Well, most of the way, areas that I can get to, and then once I drop the engine out and I have the big opening here and I can turn it to a better position, I'll finish it off. But I did get underneath a little bit where I could actually see and weld with ease. But anyways, the rear shock mount is in, the pin is in. So basically all I have left as far as the swing arm goes is finish scalloping out this side of the frame so that the chain will clear with the offset sprocket that's got to go on there. Other than that, this is ready to roll. We're up next with, figuring out what we're going to do for tank and do our subframe on here. So basically I'm going to wrap up this episode. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to probably finish scalloping this out and form and cut the bottom sections and form this out so this section of the frame is done and I don't have to come back to it. Alright, we are pretty much wrapped up with this swing arm mount. Got this all welded up here. Like I said before, I just got the underside to get. I went through and fixed where I cut it out, and the inside is scalloped, so I had plenty of space here for the chain to clear. Got this side's all done and it's ready to go. It's been detabbed in this segment, so at this point we're done with the rear shock and mounting of the swing arm. All that's left is to trim the axle and make it where it'll be a permanent fixture. I'm also going to make a spacer to go in here, simply because of the aluminum spacers that I had to put into the bearings that's in the actual swing arm. So this, I'm going to make a big giant hollow tube spacer to go across through this bolt, and that's basically to hold the spacers inside the bearings. Other than that, the swing arm is done, and we need to work on whatever tank I'm deciding to go with so I can start setting up to do the subframe for the rear. So that's it for this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one. Yeah.